Principals.
I thought I was doing it.
Okay, it is 10 o'clock and we will call to order the administrative meeting for October 20th, 2022. Glad all of you could be here. Let's see, Mr. Woodall here with us today. Having business, but always good to see you with us. And all of our other guests that are here.
I was getting my tag, so I thought I'd.
You can't talk. You're out of order. You're out of order. I just said glad to be here. Let's see, announcements. Again, want to remind everyone that absentee ballots are available. If you are not going to be here for the election on November 8th, please get your absentee ballot and exercise your right to vote. Obviously, it's important right that you have, and we encourage you to do that. Those are available, and you need to take part in elections. As I said last meeting, you or know of friends that live in Florida and Georgia, especially, get them to be sure they go and vote. All of our elections are important, but our surrounding states have extremely important elections this year too. So I encourage you to do that. We want to congratulate our Miss Houston County on doing well in the National Peanut Festival, and congratulate the new queen from Slocum, I believe. Is that right? Isn't that right? Yeah, the new National Peanut Festival queen from Slocum. So congratulate her. Things seem to be moving forward at a rapid pace to begin the Peanut Festival the first week in November. So I hope all of you are being prepared in whatever manner you get prepared for it, whether it be getting tickets or whatever in your own way, because it is coming. Other announcements from the commission. Okay, I want to thank Commissioner Harvey for bringing me a cup of coffee at my last admin meeting. Speaking of me, why you waited until the last meeting to think about it. Appreciate that. All right, we will get right into the proposed agenda. The first item, or the first items under awards and presentations, will be two proclamations. The first would be for Red Ribbon Week. Red Ribbon Week that we have done every year forever. Dana will be here, and then we will also have a proclamation for Farm City Week. Commissioner Singfield and Micah will be here for that. Is there any objection to putting those two items on the agenda?
No objection.
All right, the next items we have. I don't know if you all remember, but we have in our rules and regulations an item called consent agenda that we used to use that we have not in a little while, but we're going to this coming Monday because of the number of items we have. That item is used for things that are of a non-controversial manner. I read my rules. It's all of those can be voted on in one motion. Those are items that are considered to be routine in nature, non-controversial, and are not establishing new policy or anything. Most of these are appointments that are taking place because of the change in office on November 15th or 16th. This Monday is our last meeting of this quadrennium. And so these appointments need to be made before there's a new meeting of the next quadrennium, because the office holders and some of these boards run out. So I'll just read through these, and then and the couple of other things. The one other thing that would be in there, and if we look at all those under the consent agenda Monday, we would make one motion to approve all of those. Those would be the appointment to the Dothan Area Botanical Gardens Board. At that time, it will be Commissioner James Ivey. Appointment to the National Peanut Festival Board, Commissioner Ricky Herring. the Wiregrass RC&D Council, Commissioner Ricky Herring. Appointment to the Southeast Alabama Regional Planning and Development Commission, at that time would be Chairman Brandon Shute. This is assuming all y'all win your election. Appointment to the Wiregrass Rehab Center Advisory Board, then Commissioner Tracy Adams. Appointment to the MPO organization would be Brandon Shute and Tracy Adams. Currently, Commissioner Sinfield and I serve on that, so they would be taking our places. Appointment to the Houston County Department of Human Resources Board would be Laura Everett. That one will take effect November 1st. All these others will take effect with the end of the term of office. That particular one will take effect November 1st. Appointment to Sarcoa Board would be Brandon Shute. We are required on Sarcoa's board to have one elected official. Since I'll still be on the board, but since I'll no longer be elected as of November 15th, we have to appoint an elected official, and Chief does serve on Sarcoa's board. And then the other item is a request to award a bid for a roadway drainage pipe to the lowest bidder meeting specs. We only had one bidder, so that's a non-controversial item. So all those items are proposed to be under the consent agenda. Is there any discussion, questions? Anybody that doesn't want to be on any of those boards, you're out of luck, because that's kind of what we're gonna do, I think. Any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Chairman of Commissioners, I'm George Trotter, I reside at 4218 County Road 203, Dothan, Alabama, 36301. These appointments, are they mandated that they be an elected official?
Some of them are.
Which ones are?
I don't know, I can't remember, but when we went through them, we looked at which ones were and made sure they were.
I just want to remind you that you all have citizens out here in Houston County, a lot of knowledgeable citizens that are very, very well read in some of these areas that needs to be considered for some of these appointments, rather than it looks like I don't see any of these appointments of any citizen that's not elected official and basically sitting on this board, on this.
Laura Everett,
Commissioner.
Laura Everett's not a commissioner.
Okay, I just said the majority of them.
No,
Okay.
you said all of them.
One, I'm going to point this one out, and I'm not patting myself on the back. I want to, can I ask a question to my commissioner?
No.
Okay.
No.
I can't make a question. Well, I'll make a statement. I don't know how many years he's been on, if he can even define what RC&D is, how many years he's been on that board or knows anything about it. I served 9 years in the state of Louisiana before I moved here. I served on the RC&D council and would be considered a good person to put on that council. But I've never been requested to be asked.
No, sir, you have not.
Right. So I just want that to be known. And I think the people are highly concerned why we have elected officials only on these very important committees or these appointments of these agencies, like Sarcoa, for instance.
That has to be
Who's been the Sarcoa board members for eons?
And try to, your time is up, sir.
Well,
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, and thank you again for denying me and censoring my First Amendment rights and the Sunshine Law in the state of Alabama. Thank you.
One more time, and I'm gonna have you removed from this meeting.
That's fine. You do what you need to do.
I'm going to. As long as you disturb our commission meetings, you will be removed.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not disturbing. I'm trying to
You are
make a point.
disturbing this commission meeting. I asked
Okay,
you.
that's your opinion. Thank you.
I'm the chairman of this county commission for one more meeting, and it's not my opinion, it's my right and authority to run this meeting.
Thank you,
You
sir.
don't seem to understand.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Moving on to the regular agenda. We have a request to approve the amended subdivision regulations. Now, we've been talking about this a little while, and I'm going to ask Tyler to come up and talk about the changes that we are suggesting in the subdivision regulations, and some of the changes to the changes from what we've sent out. We are required by law to have a public hearing next Monday morning, I think, regarding this. So, you know, if we want to make any changes in what has been presented, today would be the day, I think, to discuss that and make whatever changes need to be made. I know we may have some people here that want to make some comments relative to this. Most of the changes, I think, are you know, from what we've discussed, are good and relevant to help us make sure that subdivisions and the roadways are maintained properly and are the best they can be for our citizens. We've had subdivision regulations for how long? 30 years? Yeah. 93, so yeah. So almost 30 years. So, so helps us make sure that things are built to the proper standards so that when citizens buy property, you know, that they know they're getting the right kind of roads and whatnot. So, Tyler, you go ahead and tell us what changes we're proposing and. we'll go
Okay,
from there. Any comments from the commission?
I believe in your packet, there was, the very first thing is we were making an amendment to the subdivision regulations from a 30-foot minimum road frontage to 100-foot. We have had some discussion and we would like to amend that amendment to 75 feet instead of 100 feet. And then also in that same section, there's a part where it allows the county engineer to allow adjacent property owners to combine their driveway pipe so that it's not a driveway pipe, a small hole that we can't maintain, and then another driveway pipe. It would allow them to connect those. Currently how it's worded, that's not the case. So it would have to be approved by the county engineer to do so though. The next change would be, we are requesting to add a 10-foot utility easement to the backside of the 50-foot right of way in our existing subdivisions. This is to try to eliminate future issues with, as more and more utilities come in underground, everybody's going underground. When we go out there to repair storm drainage structures, if we're able to move those utilities further back, it does allow us to not damage those utilities and cause outages for the customers. You know, there's a 20-foot minimum building line in place, so it doesn't really affect where they can build their home in the subdivision on the lot. So it's still within that. Another item, we've had a request to add a mountable curb to our subdivision regulations. That would have to be approved by Barclay as well, but they are allowed to install a mountable curb if these regulations are approved. We changed the left turn lane distances to match the Alabama Department of Transportation Access Management guides instead of a outdated chart that we had in there. And then we also added some things that are in a utility manual that we have to actually apply to subdivision regulations as well, as far as where power poles and stuff are allowed to be located in the right of way. And that's it. Any questions?
I think probably the thing that has created most discussion is that going from 30 to 100 feet originally, and then based on discussion and concerns we've had from contractors or realtors or whatever, lowering it back down to 75. I think 75 allows for enough room for right of way for utilities should there be a subdivision added or something.
That was our thought process for the most part, is the 75 feet would allow enough room for the 50-foot right of way, and then also the easement that we were hopefully, you know, requiring to pass in these regulations.
Yeah.
And then it also eliminates so many stacked driveways on our county road where they're more like a neighborhood instead of a county right away.
Yeah, I mean, based on what I, posted, the 100 feet was just a lot. I mean, so that's great. Try to come up with something that's more workable on that.
And I do want to note that we've had another county, a neighboring county, call us and want to follow our lead. Theirs is 30 as well, and whatever we go to, they want to try to follow us because they realize that the 30 feet is just not sufficient anymore.
All right, comments from commissioner.
I've got a question.
All right.
Tyler, can you explain to me, or maybe Barkley as well, explain to me why we're going from 30 to 75? Of what reason behind it is? Is it because of safety reasons? Is it because of taxpayers' money? I mean, are we using equipment and time? Is it costing us more money because of these so-called flag lots, for these 30, pipes aren't being connected? It's costing more work on the county because of these issues. Can you explain to me why we're doing this?
Well, I mean, typically, anytime, especially as Dothan continues to grow out, the population is going to increase, so you're going to get more traffic. And the more driveways you have on your road, it does create a safety issue. So this is to try to limit the amount of driveways that we have. And if somebody's wanting to develop off the road, it really needs to be more subdivision related and have a single point of access versus stacking multiple driveways in there. But as far as creating more work on the county, now that we're allowing joint driveway pipes, I wouldn't say that it is eliminating work for us by going to the 75.
So in other words, in my district, South Park, I believe Kaiser built those homes from Taylor Road or 605 there around that area,
That's correct.
where those are stacked on top of each other. Those pipes now would be connected and they would be able to continue on building something that way if the pipes were connected correctly. If the pipes were connected, that would solve that issue of putting.
Yeah, and it's not in every issue. I mean, it just depends on where this driveway pipe is versus this one. I mean, if this lot's driveway pipe's on this side and this one's here, it's just situations where if this lot's got a driveway pipe on this end of it, and then you got your flag lot right here, we wind up with a little hole there, the grass grows up, we can't mow. We have to try to spray. We can connect those, we're gonna make them connect those now. When they do
Cover up the
driveway
dirt
pipe.
where-
Yeah, they just have a wide driveway right there. Now, in certain cases, it may require an inlet or something to be put in, but, that would be on the homeowner to do so, whoever wanted that driveway. So,
Okay, so, and this other question I got, so if I own some acres in the county, and say I wanna buy 50 acres of property, and, how I was gonna pay for that property was gonna be by building me a house back in the back, and in the front of that, I was gonna subdivide that out, lots, and subdivide that out, to sort of pay for that property eventually and get that off of me, my house be paid for, making a good business deal. Would that affect, stretching this limit, would that affect me? Would I be considered a flag lot if I build in the back of that property?
You would be considered a flag lot, so you would have to have 75 feet of road frontage for that back parcel. So from going from 30 to 75, it would take away 45 feet of road frontage that you would have had how the regulations currently exist. But in a one lot scenario, I don't really think it affects you that much because 45 feet, you can't really build a house in that narrow of a lot anyway.
But the biggest issue, I take it, is the driveway pipe's not connecting, and then you have little bitty areas that we can't maintain because grass and weeds are growing up and so forth. And if we could connect them pipes and have those regulations that those pipes are connected, that would solve the problem of putting more work on us, unnecessary work, more or less.
yes, it is. It will help, yes, but all the counties around get a lot of complaints on flag lots. I mean, I know some of them are 60 foot, they still get flag lots, and they're wanting to change that to something else as well, so. But as far as we go, road and bridge goes, combining the pipes helped our situation a lot. So,
All right, that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Singer.
Yes, thank you, Tyler. I know we're talking about the subdivision, basically about the flag lots. my concern is, changing this policy. Some property owner has, a small lot. And he only has 45 feet of right of way that he has. Okay, so how can we amend or make that a change? If we're talking about a property owner
Right.
that wants to sell that land, or
Right.
that lot
Right.
that he owns, and he has only 45 feet, and we're gonna go to 75 feet.
Right.
How can we adjust that
If the,
individual so he can still sell that property?
if the property is already platted and deeded as only having 45 feet, then they would not fall underneath these subdivision regulations because they're not subdividing new property. It's already deeded and platted that way. So therefore, they would be exempt from the policy. They would not have to have 75 feet of road frontage.
Right. Well, you know, I certainly see the benefit of this. Of course, I'm thankful that we made a policy change on our driveways, where contractors are handling that. We're not so involved in it other than going out and inspecting and making sure that that driveway meets our policies. The other thing is though, if we can allow them to do it, we don't have to involve ourselves as much because we are saving money by the new policy change from the driveway policy. And I appreciate the person setting that up. But that being the case, then I'm fine with it. I kind of rather see a 60 foot. You know, I don't have any heartburn over 75, but you know, again, it is our realtors and developers and building these subdivisions, you know, make it more accommodating for those. So.
The primary reason for the 75 versus the 60 is to do with the easement requirement for a future subdivision. Just so that they don't have to go back to an existing property owner and say, hey, we need an easement. They already have that amount of property there needed for future.
Right away.
Correct.
Well, I know that some people, property owners, a lot of our easements are 60 foot now, aren't they? Is that our standard?
Our right of way or our standard right of way and for a county road is 60 feet. In a subdivision, it's currently 50.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Tom.
Other question? Yes, sir. Shoot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we talked about this, but I want to clarify and kind of get it in the public. So that combining the driveway pipe, that doesn't necessarily mean you've got one driveway, correct?
That's correct.
You've got one driveway pipe. Yes, you
Correct.
still have two driveways. We had mentioned this earlier, which is one reason I may want to put an effective date on this. I think there's some subdivisions that have been kind of conceptualized, but not necessarily platted. And these may impact their ability to do what they have conceived. And so I'm going to give that some thought, but just a heads up, that's kind of where I'm going. The issue of the flag lots, I know I'm talking to especially the volunteer rescue squad, sometimes when we in much dry right now, oftentimes we have a tremendous amount of rain. It causes problems when people are trying to, ambulance is not a lightweight vehicle. We have a long flag lot, unimproved driveway, and they have to exit the ambulance, take the stretcher over the lawn, get mama out of the bed or wherever, and then stretcher her all the way back to the ambulance, which causes some safety considerations. So, and then just from an aesthetic standpoint, I mean, flag lots are not the most attractive. I think it's legitimate for us to ask, is that kind of the development that we want to have in the county? So, but at the same time, I've said this before to multiple people that asked me about it, I don't want to create problems that we don't intend to create. I don't want to try to solve problems and create other problems. So anyway, I know we've got some people here that are probably won't make comments on it.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments? I do have a question. Yes, sir, Mr. We've got a question to you. I'm glad you want to make a comment, Mr. Counselor.
One other thing while he's coming up here too, that right of way, utility right of way deal we're talking about, the city of Dothan already does that. So, not used, just adding it to ours.
As you make your comments, tell me in your comments, when, if we pass this Monday, when will this become effective?
It would be effective now, whenever you pass it.
Unless we put in the motion effective X day.
Correct. Now, if anything's already in the process, that should be grandfathered in.
What does that mean?
If they've.
I mean, I know it grandfathered in.
A
What
preliminary
is, what is already in the process?
If we've received a preliminary plat, it should move forward from there.
But if someone's just thinking about it in their mind,
If
that's
they
not
haven't-
already in the process.
If they haven't come to us yet without further stipulations,
Yeah.
then we can't say, because we don't know what we don't know. How long can you conceptualize something?
Yeah, I agree with that.
But if somebody has started and talked to us about this, I would consider that.
If they've had conversations.
As grandfathered in, is that
So-
not correct?
The preliminary plat would be the kickoff point. So if we need to clarify that, and it's whatever you guys want to do, we just put that in the added to when these will take place.
Yeah, I mean, I don't wanna, if somebody has begun, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. I don't wanna, I'm not meaning this to anybody that's here or not here, but I don't wanna move the date back so somebody can skirt around what we're trying to do. But at the same time, if somebody has been legitimately working with you, even if they haven't submitted it, you know, I would want to feel like we should give them the opportunity to continue that process and not cut them off in the middle. So
I would think so. That's where-
do you have a defined number of people or a person or whatever that has done that, or?
I think only one person has contacted us. Is that not correct?
Yeah, we have, I would say two.
Do you have any idea when those two will present their preliminary plats?
The one hasn't started with engineering design. They met with North Star and they called me yesterday, actually. The others in the audience,
Well, I don't know. I mean, let's don't put them on the spot.
I'm not sure what his timeline is on.
Okay, we'll have to. I mean, I would think if they have contacted you, we want to exclude them, but how we do that, Mr. Counselor? I don't know if we want to make a motion, this applies to everybody unless they talk to the engineer. I mean, we can't do that. You know?
I would feel uncomfortable excluding certain people. That's just me.
Okay.
I'd rather have just a fair
Start date,
start date.
so say,
And I don't know how long it takes to come up with a limited flat.
Yeah, that's beyond my expertise.
well, we could, I mean, if we made it effective January 1st, would that's a fair timeframe?
That,
And any presented before then would be the old rules, and any after that, I mean, that should be fair, I would think.
And-
And maybe somebody will want to address that when they come up to address it, but I'll give 2.5 months. Okay, now go ahead and make your comment. I didn't mean to divert you.
This is just to make sure we're all on the same sheet of music. The first item, 1-8-1, is an exception to the requirement to submit a plat for a subdivision. These items used to, well, the current regulations state if you're on County Road X, as long as there's 30 feet of right of way and there's no flag lots, you do not have to fall under the subdivision regulations. This is changing that from 30 feet to 75 feet. It is not saying, herein is not saying, and you can't do anything ever again with anything less than 75 feet. It would have to fall under regulations. Is that, I don't know if that clarifies anything or not.
No, say that again slower.
This is an exception to the requirement that a piece of property would have to fall under the subdivision regulations.
This is an
Currently,
exception to the requirement that a piece of property would have. So this is saying that a piece of property would not fall under the subdivision.
correct. These are the things that would not fall under.
Okay,
So currently, if you line up, you could line up 10 houses along a road.
right.
And as long as each of them have 30 feet of road frontage and there's not flag lots more than 2, they don't have to adhere to the subdivision regulations.
Okay.
This is changing that to 75 feet.
Okay.
It doesn't say that they can't do smaller lots that would have to follow the subdivision regulations. to do that.
Which just strictly means they don't have to build the existing road is okay as is. They don't have to update it to the subdivision regulations, curb and gutter, storm drainage, utilities. That's really all that's saying.
It just excludes them from all the other stuff.
Correct.
Yeah, I got
You don't have to do storm drain detention, any of that. You just have to plat the lot and build your house.
I got you.
Okay. That's, what he says is probably better than what I was trying to do.
You're a lawyer. don't talk.
That's our problem.
Weird language.
Any other questions for me?
Not yet.
Okay.
All right, anyone else want to make comment? You raising your hand?
No,
Oh, great. Any of y'all want to, yes, sir, come on up, state your name and tell us what you think about all this.
Morning, Chad Dean, build houses, develop property. Really just two things. 75 foot is what y'all are looking at. I would encourage you to at least consider 60 foot. I know that a lot of places around, a lot of counties that we are in touch with, they may jump up to 75 if we do, but they're at 60 right now. So I would encourage you at least to consider it being 60 foot. And the other thing was, I know it was mentioned on the when this will be implemented.
Yeah.
And January 1st, I understand that. If I could suggest 6 months, not because we want to, go out and buy some property but if I bought property a month ago, you go through getting your surveying done and appraisals and stuff like that. It just doesn't happen overnight. So if we've got plans to do something, it could take 2 or 3 months before the thought that we had for that property comes to fruition. So if we had, 6 months, at least consider a little further out than, January 1st.
All right, let me ask you a question about both of those comments. Do you understand why the difference in the 60 and the 75 with the right of way? We're hoping, so if somebody were to make a subdivision out of something, that additional space would give us room for right of way. Does that make sense?
I understand that, but I kind of consider them two different things. We're developing that subdivision on National Road, and I see, you've got one entrance for 52 lots. I see it different as having, like what Chrysler did out there on South Park. They are just on top of each other, and I understand there needs to be change. So I was just hoping, I kind of thought that was two different things. You've got a subdivision with one entry, and then you've got a developed area with multiple entries. So to me, that's where I'm a little confused on that part.
I think we were thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we were thinking if somebody did it and then wanted to use that to develop a subdivision later, is what we were thinking.
Oh, well, see, for us, it wouldn't be that way, because if we're gonna build a house, if we're gonna have lots across a frontage area, I sent something to Ricky on this we had like 6 road frontage lots, and then we had 1 flag lot. And so we sold that, it's just 1 flag lot. It was just 9 acres and 1 home was going on it. And it can't be anything else. But now
And that's
I see what
usually
you're
the
saying.
case, but we were, you want to say something? You look like you about.
No, there has been an instance where a developer come in, developed a piece of property, did not plan on expanding at all. And then it went better than he anticipated, and he bought the adjacent piece of property that wasn't his and expanded the subdivision. So there are some scenarios where that you may not planned on it and there may not be room for it, but there may be adjacent piece of property behind that becomes available, and then it becomes, I understand the chances are more likely of what he's saying. That's all you're gonna do is a flag lot, but there are scenarios where they may not have planned on that originally, but it does happen in the future.
how wide is our entry at Rama Oaks?
It is.
Y'all
It's-
don't need to have a conversation.
Oh, sorry. They know the rules.
Well, right now, right now, the current regulations is 50 feet. So
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Sir, certainly, live it at Commissioner Sheep. Problem.
I understand 75, I understand where you're coming from, so I guess my question is, could you write it in a way so that if you have a flag lot over a certain number of acres, we still require the 75 foot? So in other words, if you've got like a 5 acre flag lot, probably not gonna be a subdivision. But if you've got 50 acres, maybe you do need to, I don't know.
Well, I talked to press about this acreage deal, and we didn't really think that was a good idea for us to try to be policing the size of lots back there and all that, you know, I mean.
We're not, I guess what I'm asking is we're not pleased with the size of lots. I'm just saying, if you have a flag lot that's over a certain number of acres, we still require the 75, but if not, maybe 60 is good. I don't know.
I see what you're saying, but I guess my question,
The issue we have with the policing is not necessarily policing, but technically that section, they don't have to come before us at all.
yeah,
They can plat that and we never see it. We never approve it. So there's really no way for us to know acreage wise, because they can just hire a surveyor,
right.
get a deed.
Well, and where would you set the size? I mean, is it 5, is it 10, is it 20? Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you this. So the difference in 60 and 75, in our case, is the right of way. Does that, I mean, I heard what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying to protect the county going forward. But does that, I mean, is that something that is happening a lot?
What's that? That's what I-
The 15-foot difference necessary?
That's just in subdivisions, I mean, so we can move the utilities back, is what the 15 foot's for. I mean, it's not happening now, because we don't require it. But in future subdivisions, we would require the easement to be moved back into that 15-foot easement. 10-foot easement. 10-foot.
What you're asking is that we don't require a 75-foot road frontage.
Yes, that was to discourage flag lots.
Right.
I mean.
Right, yeah.
But that would also, if we do the utilities in the subdivision, that would allow enough room for that in the future going back, if the case,
Yeah.
you know, if Mr. Dean bought some land behind it, wanted to do a subdivision back there, he could at that point, right, Tyler?
That's correct. Otherwise, if it was 60 feet and you wanted, I'm just using it.
Right. Yeah, just because you're saying it, I don't mean it's-
If you wanted to do that, then you would have to require additional
Property from,
Property.
or an easement from the already
from
sold.
the adjoint, yeah. So which would you, I mean, if you were in that situation, which would you?
Well, I've never bought property with, I always have a plan before I buy it. So, I mean, and I'm sure there are situations where that could come up. But as far as, when we bought the stuff that we're doing on National Road, that's what we knew. That's what we're going to do with it. And it just makes sense. So I understand what they're saying. I just really think it is an extremely rare circumstance, unless you have someone that buys 50 acres and then they sell a bunch of lots off the front and they say, you know what, I don't want that property back there. And they've only got it down to 60 feet and now they're limited to just one, one house back there. But I mean, that's for y'all to decide.
Yeah,
Uh,
let's ponder on that. The other question is on the time. 6 months that's a long time for us to pass.
About a
something to
year.
make effective. That's a longer time. Hey, you should be a politician.
Good.
What if we did it January 1st, but had some mechanism? I'm not trying to open a can of worms here, for you to submit something, a letter saying, I'm working on this project.
Okay, I was going to suggest if we would show, okay, we contacted our surveyor and we can present it
Yeah.
and say, look, this is what we've got planned, but they can't get to it till
Yeah.
January
yeah,
10th.
Something like that, just some kind of letter of intent. Does that make sense? Is that okay with y'all?
That's fine.
Does that work with y'all? I mean, 6 months there's no reason for us to pass something to be effective 6 months. I mean, hey, I ain't gonna be here in 2 months. I ain't gonna be here in 2 weeks. I mean, would that work? If we made it January 1st?
Oh, you asking me?
Yeah.
Well, no, I want 6 months, but I'm, I'm just telling
But I
you,
don't want to give you 6
I
months.
understand that, but just my opinion. I mean, yes, if, any amount of time that we can get, I understand that. I really want to encourage the 60 feet, when y'all are, when we
Okay.
vote on this.
Yeah.
One more thought, and I don't know how much time I have, but
You're probably over it.
okay. Everything that we're talking about is, safety, people pulling on roads and stuff like that. And one thing that, I've talked about it with you, I've talked about it with these two guys, we don't have any kind of oversight on houses being built in the county. Please consider that. I know it's, coming up, you're moving on, I understand that. We do not have, we have permits, but we can't get a certificate of occupancy. I mean, we need oversight on all these homes that are being built in the county. So please, we need that desperately. I cannot encourage you enough.
I don't disagree.
Can I make a comment on that real quick?
You may.
Mr. Chairman?
You can go, you
My understanding is, and you might can tell me this, or either Scott or Donnie, or even Richard back there, but my understanding is the homeowners association and so forth has approached the state delegation about maybe presenting something to the state about there being regulations for home builder regulations and having inspectors for electrical inspectors and so forth. Are y'all aware of this?
It's been talked about a lot.
Mhm.
So, but it's just, I don't know if it's gonna happen on a state level as much as it would. I know that U5 could make it happen. So that's why you're the people in front of me. That's what I wanted to mention to.
Right. Okay.
Thank y'all very much.
Yeah. Oh, you got it. Go
Yeah, I
ahead.
have, Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I told you to sit down. Sorry.
Wow, this change of amending this to 75, which I agree with you, I'd like to see the 60. But how will that affect you with developer in the future in your purchasing, continuing subdivisions and building homes? How does that, you feel like that's gonna?
It's gonna slow development a little bit because if I know that I can go buy 20 acres and I know that I can make so many lots out of it,
Yeah.
well, then one, I'm willing to pay more money for it. And, the person buying it makes a little bit of money. I can put more lots there, which means I can charge a little bit less because if I pay $10,000 an acre and I can only get 5 lots out of it, or if I pay $10,000 an acre and I can get 7 lots out of it. So it is going to limit that. And again, I understand that we need to make the change, but development is going to slow just a bit. It's also, y'all know that we've got that subdivision over there. That's our first one. I've been doing this 20 years. It is not something that you can just jump out there and develop, $1 million or $2 million subdivision. So that is going to limit development to the large companies. The big companies will be the only ones that get to come in and, because you see what's going on in the Rehoboth area, especially Wicksburg, Headland, everywhere like that. So I don't want the little guy getting kind of pushed aside. And it's a small thing. I mean, 15 feet. I understand that, but it's just my thoughts on
Thank
it.
you, and I appreciate that. And of course, in my response to Commissioner Herring, I appreciate his concern about we have a home rule that's coming eventually, where so many homes are going out into the rural areas now. We do need some type of inspection done. I don't know what, I think that, Mr. Chairman, would that have to go before our local delegation to
There is
amend that to the point where we can have that,
there is a process. It is a long and arduous process,
Yes.
but there is a process that can move forward. Now, you are right, whoever said that, you are right. There is some legislation that's being looked at statewide. Our association has some concerns with that, but, concerns can always be worked out. So either or, it can be looked at. So, we've been talking about regulations out in the county since before I was here. So,
We need it.
it's just, it's always a battle between home builders and what we need to do, and the farming community and Anyway, we'll get
Okay.
there. But you're right, you do.
Thank y'all.
All right, so the only question, do y'all wanna leave this at 70? What?
Yeah.
Anybody else wanna?
I know you don't want me to.
I wouldn't let him talk.
I know he
I
will.
just-
Richard Talley, and don't have as big a dog in the hunt as Chad. A few years back, I bought some property down on Memphis Church Road, got 48 feet on the road, and I called Barkley because I have 4 girls, and I would love to have them maybe eventually live out there with me on my 31 acres. And he said, well, I don't really like to do lots like that with an easement. Well, I think you may be creating a very similar situation if you do this. I'm just saying, because now I understand a subdivision with a setback for an additional 15 feet for utilities. But we're talking about a one driveway. You don't need that extra 15 feet for one driveway. The setback of the 15 easement is in a yard in a subdivision like Chad's developing down there. And I get that. That's a totally different animal. And we've already, I think we've established that 60-foot right of way on the county is standard at this point in time. I don't understand the 75 feet. I thought the 100 was overkill. I think 75 feet is overkill. If it's good enough for the road that Commissioner Sinkfield lives on, Commissioner Harry, I know Commissioner Shoop's in the subdivision, I know Commissioner Harvey's in the subdivision, I know you're in a subdivision. But for those of us who don't want to live inside a subdivision or inside the city limits of Dothan, we actually prefer to have less regulation, a little bit less. We want to be protected. I was one of the very strongest proponents from the Home Builder Association to try to get y'all to get inspectors, because I see what happens to somebody who builds a house who knows nothing about it and it's not inspected, and you got a jackleg that's not, I'm not talking about these builders that are here, but a jackleg that builds a house that shouldn't be building a house, okay? So yes, I think from a protecting of our citizens, it's better to do inspectors than fewer driveways, okay? I mean, let's face it. What's the most important thing? In most cases, the largest investment in real estate that a person does is their own home. That's it. And if we don't protect them there, that's where we're falling down. But a 60-foot, I get it, okay? You can still do a subdivision with 60 feet because the setbacks that the engineer's been talking about is for inside a subdivision. But the majority of these flag lots that are sold by Donnie, Chad, they're not ever going to be a subdivision. They're one house. Me, I bought it with 48 feet. I've got my house back there. Yes, I'd love to be able to have my girls one day build houses back there. But if I can't, I've tried to buy, I actually did try to buy some additional from a adjoining landowner. Have not been successful yet. But I mean, when you go to somebody and say, hey, I want to buy 60 feet from you, that hurts what they can do with the rest of their property too. So keep in mind that you will affect people. You will with this. And there's a lot of people that do want to move out of city and into county living. They like to have a little bit of acreage and they don't need, I mean, I've got 48 feet, but my driveway, how wide is your driveway at your house? What's the widest? I mean, most driveways are on the county right of way. The driveway, a typical driveway. I mean, y'all are the ones that set the whole thing for the pipes. You go out there and you tell them where to put it. I've had to do this.
That's not true.
You don't
They
tell them?
Tell us where they want to put it, then we look at it and see if it's okay. Now, we don't tell people where to put a pipe.
Y'all just tell them what size pipe they got to put in and what they got to do.
Yeah.
Okay. But you could, instead of having them, and most everybody's going to put it in the center of their property, you know, that kind of thing. But if they want to put it on the edge, then yeah, connect them. I get that. But I think 60 feet is plenty big enough.
All right, having heard all that, having heard y'all's discussion, I don't think there's any objection putting this on the agenda, but we need to determine what we want this to say. It currently says 100 feet. If we're all in agreement that we at least want to go by the staff recommendation of 75, or do we want to change it to 60? That's what I need to know. All right, do you want to make a comment? I'm sorry, come right on ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand. I apologize.
I just came to listen. I didn't think I'd
Oh,
have
that's
anything
what
to
I
say, but I would, I don't think I've ever really been in a flag lot situation, and I don't anticipate one, so I'll just won't get information, but I would say that a consideration would be expense, because houses, as we know, it's so high right now. Paying double for concrete, probably 700% up on lumber. I mean, some of this is, it's difference in what we were building for 115, 120 foot. Now it's 160, 170 foot. Customers are getting killed. Every little expense is a huge deal. We get so many that we work with, they get to banking and it never happens. They can't get through it. They don't have enough out of pocket. They just can't. So I get the whole multiple driveways on the road. That's a big, that's safety. I get all that. But the timing of where we're at in the economy right now, to me, means maybe this is an issue for later. Anything that adds expense to a customer, and this is just one thing, but there's so many other things from so many other directions. With the craziness of our economy right now, maybe this is something you revisit if things ever stabilize out. But right now, who knows when that's going to be? I think we all probably feel like it's only going to get worse. So I think, these people that are living on flag lots, that's the best they can do. They've looked around. That's what they've been able to find. And I've built on them before, and they've been happy to have a house on them. But, going in and saying that we're going to do a service road or we're going to do other things that add expense like that, it's just not reality, because that even gets transferred to the customer. So, that would be something to consider. Is this the timing? I agree with everything, the sense of it, it all makes sense, but just cost. And then the other thing I want to say on this, the culvert pipe, when you say you got a gap, is there a certain gap that we're talking about as a threshold? Is it 5 feet? Is it 10 feet? What?
It'll be at our discretion.
All right, so let's say you got these two driveways and this neighbor is 3 feet from the line and this one's 12 feet from the line. And that's kind of within your discretion. Are we giving them the choice to connect, or are we making them connect?
No, it's gonna be there'll be one driveway pipe here, and then if they want to put theirs here, and we feel like it's gonna be a problem, we would tell this person that put the second driveway pipe in, you're gonna have to connect to this one.
So he's going, like this neighbor here built 5 years ago and he's 12 feet, or let's say he's 7 feet. This other guy wants to be 3 feet from his line. He's gonna have to go 10 feet across to connect to the neighbor at his expense.
Yeah.
So that'd be a problem too. This driveway pipe is crazy what that's costing, and some of you, we spoke about this when we did that a year ago, but I know that there's a mindset that, well, builders can pay for that. That's who really pays for it. It's like when gas goes up, who pays for it, y'all? And I know, I'm just guessing Chad is like me. I just don't include driveway pipes in my price. That's up to the customer. And that's where I'll be from now on. So they have to do this. And so that's another thing where you're just adding expense to a customer. So when they're already facing the house and now they're facing some pipe, and it just all adds up. So, this ain't like in my world of worries, this is way down there. I'm just saying it's expense, so, and it all matters.
Well, that would probably actually save them money, because they wouldn't have to buy an end treatment for that end. So they don't have to buy an end treatment for that end and have to buy 6, 7, 8 more foot of pipe. They would actually save money in that situation. So,
But it also depends on what that discretion is, because if we're talking 10 feet, like my example, that's different than 25 feet. I just don't, might want to define that.
We
because-
wouldn't do it 25.
Yeah, but you want to define that, because otherwise it may put you in a bind, and you get one neighbor having to pay more than the other neighbor. I'm just warning that could be criticized.
Well, that would be up to our staff.
Yeah, but that's fine. I won't deal with it, so it won't bother me, but something to consider.
All right, well, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, back to my question. What number y'all want to put in? I know we don't want to do 100 feet as it says, so. But you say you like 60, is that?
Chairman, I do hear these gentlemen developers and they make a lot of sense about what they're trying to do, and especially what Chad brought up about his future in developing properties and the future is fine. And we're seeing an enormous amount of growth out in the rural area. People are moving out. You know, I could ask Counselor for if he thinks that we need to table this and look at this a little bit more in detail to get a better understanding of all parties involved. But in my honest opinion at this point, I just feel 60 foot would be better for these developers and for us. And we do know that we've eliminated a lot of the cost for county to maintain and put in right-of-way pipes, and it's falling back on the contractors, which has helped us tremendously. When Mr. Kirkland said we're saving over $800,000 a year in labor and maintenance. So
I think, looking at the engineer, I think the staff can live with 60 if that's what everybody wants to do. And that's what other counties are doing. And hearing what we've heard, I think if we want to amend that to 60, I think, are y'all good with that?
Mr. Chairman, and I don't have a problem with going to 60, but I'm gonna tell you, I gotta say this and say it out, while we're here. But that's the reason in 2004, that Ricky Herring did not annex in the city limits of Dothan back then, is because I don't want somebody to dictate what I was gonna do on my property and how I was gonna do it. Now, I can understand completely it being, if things are going back on the county or the city, and it's putting more expenses back on them, and they're having to handle something somebody else created. But, I understand completely, both sides, I really do. But I just want to make sure that we're not going to sit here and dictate what somebody else is going to do with the property that they purchased and have.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm staying in the county. That's why I stay in the county, because I think there is too many, sometimes I understand we got regulation. Don't get me wrong. You got policies, you got procedures, you got laws to abide by. But, I do want to say that it's worked for many, many years, the 30 foot. And, but going to 60, as long as it's not going to affect,
I think
what they're continuing to do, and we can be happy with 60, I'll go to 60 to meet the bill.
I heard what you said, and that is why a lot of people live in the county. The other side of that sword is if somebody wants to buy 50 acres next to your $500,000 house and build a pig farm, they do that too.
That's true. That's true.
All right, then we will amend that to 60 and put this on the agenda for the public hearing will be on that set of amendments. Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for being here, taking your time to express your opinion. Thank you very much. Item number 2 is request to adopt resolution of official intent of county to issue its general obligation warrant and a loan of the proceeds to Sarcoa pursuant to amendment 772. We have been, as you all know, in discussion with Sarcoa about working with them on their building expansion. They have asked us to, in essence, be a conduit to their funding for their building. They will be paying, just bottom line, they will be paying the note. We will just be issuing the bond. We will take a mortgage on the building as collateral. So, I mean, not everything will happen, but if they weren't paid, we would end up with the building. So we're covered by collateral on it. This is just the intent to do it so they can move forward. Y'all would actually, you all that will still, 3 that will still be here will actually do the paperwork and all that at a later time. And Commissioner then Chairman Shoup, if he is fortunate enough to get elected in November, will sign the paperwork at some point in the future. They're building a $4.5 million building. This amount of money we're running through us is about $2 million, and they would do a note with them. They pay us back. If all that makes sense. Any questions about that? Did I say all that right, Chris? Okay. Chris has been working closely with their lawyer and the lawyers that are putting this together. So he's representing us and our interest, as has Peter. So we should be in good hands regarding this. Questions?
Well,
I mean, yes, sir.
this Sarco, and it's indicated will increase employment opportunities in the area served by the county.
Yes, sir.
that will be additional employees for Salco, is that correct? What, assisting in our senior citizens and
Absolutely. Their services, you know, I'm, put on my other hat, I'm on that board and, their services continue to grow, tremendously. That's the reason for the building. They've outgrown the building and those services are so important. I'm finding them to be more and more important every day. And, for a lot of reasons. But yes, they, in the last 2 years, they've grown from 80 some odd employees to, I think our new budget, once we get this done, have like 140 employees. So they continue to employ Wiregrass residents and, a long answer to say yes. Other questions or comments? Any objection to adding this to the agenda?
No objection.
Anything else I need to say about that, Fred? Okay. Item number 3 is a request to adopt resolution authorizing commission chairman to request allocation from local assistance and tribal consistency fund. We have been allocated $100,000 in additional, I would say ARPA funds, but it's not really ARPA funds. It's very similar to ARPA funds. We're treating it like ARPA funds. And our chief administrative officer feels as though we need to approve this resolution asking for those funds. Anybody wants to give us free money, we'll take it.
Absolutely.
That's what this is on the agenda. Any questions about that for Peter? Any comments?
Just to point out that it's coming, like the original FRF money, it's coming in 2 tranches, 50,000 each, one January-ish, and the other the following January.
I think on our, I don't remember what we were doing for this on the list. I think using it to help with one of our projects. I won't say because it might be misstate. I don't remember anyway. We'll use it for some good county purpose. All right, item number 4 is request to accept property on Ennis Road from the city of Dothan for public safety building. You all know we're have the big building out on Ennis Road that we have been talking about using ARPA funds to build. To house equipment and other related things from the sheriff's department, and the city of Dothan has some equipment and the PPE stuff from EMA along with some equipment. The city voted Tuesday to transfer that however many acres, I'm saying 10, but now it's showing 14 acres to us. We need to vote to accept that, and hopefully the plans are going to be ready in the next few days. I'm not going to say weeks, I'm going to say days, so that we can begin work on that project. We're going to do the site work. We will then, you all will then figure out how much the city owes you for their portion and enter into an agreement for them to pay their expenses. But today, we're asking you to accept the property or Monday. Questions, comments? Any objection to adding that to the agenda? Okay. That's smooth. I'll get that comment. Item number 4 is, wait, we got 2 4s. Oh, no, we got the same 4. Oh, my sheet's different. Item 5, request to approve maintenance responsibility swap of certain roads with the city of Dothan effective January 1st, 2023, and authorize chairman to negotiate and sign documents. Markley, or y'all want to talk about this? We have, in conjunction with these 2 gentlemen in our road and bridge department and Mr. Cowper and his staff, and back and forth, and Hemming and Hawing, and we have negotiated what is best described as a road maintenance swap. There are certain roads that we have continued to maintain that just because of growth really need to be city maintained roads, high traffic in the city limits, just need to be city maintained. And there are certain roads that are out a little bit in the city that are just better served being our roads. So we've arrived at a relatively close mileage slot. We get a little more mileage, but they're getting much higher traffic roads. They're getting 2 roundabouts. We are doing some, using some of our MPO money to do some resurfacing. They've agreed to pay any of the overages on that, and there will be overages. So all in all, I think, and I'll defer to our engineering staff, I think we're, for the long haul, I think this is good for the county and the city, and most importantly, good for the citizens of both. So that's what's before you. We've done this before in the past with both the state and the city. We did real good with the state, and we last time we did really good with the city, I think. And actually, some of these roads we did back are some we gave them before. That just, it makes sense for us to take them back. So now that I ran my mouth and said all that, y'all say what you did to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, essentially it's just over 9 mile, pretty much like Chairman Culver said, pretty even swap. If you look at the map, the areas that the city's getting are high traveled, west side of Dothan, and then we're taking more roads to the east side of Dothan, taking a couple dirt roads. And so it just really makes sense. I think both parties between the back and forth come to an agreement on everything. So,
And I do want to seriously commend city manager and his staff and assistant city manager and all them for working with us. And I put them under the gun a little bit since I wanted to try to get this done before Monday, before I left, and pushed them a little bit. And I appreciate their working with us. And they're not awful to work with.
and just so y'all are aware, there are 3 roads that we're giving them that's not completely in the city limits. So we will have to come before y'all and do an agreement that press, I think, will have to work on for them to maintain the sections that's not in the city limits. But it's like one of those sections where it goes city limits, county, city limits on the other side. So there's just a small window.
So we need to do that before January 1st, Chris. So you can work that out with whoever over there. And again, if Brandon is fortunate enough to get elected in November, he would have to execute that. I keep saying that, don't
If not me, it'll be the mysterious writing.
I? Yeah. So, yeah, we will have to do that because there are some of these roads, like you said, that the city is not, it's not in the city. They're actually taking some all 100% in county roads. All right, any questions about this or any objections to adding this to the agenda? Okay, thank you all for your work too on this, Barkley. All right, item number 6 is request to award bid for disposal of solid waste to lowest bidder meeting specs. That would be that of Waste Management. I will tell you, this has been a long process also. We hope to just renew this contract for various reasons. We had to rebid it. They did rebid it at the price we have been paying, which is, I appreciate them doing that, and I told their rep that. He will be here Monday, I think. So we'll need to get a contract from him, updated contract. He said that would not be a problem, but we got to dispose of our garbage. So. And this is the best way to do it. We use, just for y'all's information, we use both their landfill down in Campbell and the transfer station up at on that field, depending on where our trucks are.
Yeah, it actually helps us out a lot. When on that end of the county, down there, they just run down Campbell kind of stuff.
Pretty good. Mr. Chairman, with it, this a year when the contract comes back?
I think it's a year with renewals, right?
Yeah, we'll set it up that way.
Yeah. I think the bid spec said.
Bid specs, every year with 1 year.
Two more options. Okay. Any objection to adding that to the agenda?
No objection.
All right, item number 7, request to award bid for hot plant mix to lowest bidder meeting specs. It'll be Mid-South time you add all that other stuff to
That's
the other one, right? Any questions about that? Any objections to adding that to the agenda? Item number 8 is a request to approve final plat for Lima Oak subdivision. Final plat, that means we can sell some lots.
Yes, sir.
That's your subdivision? I think it must be when you're hanging around.
Yes, sir. This is just a 52 lot subdivision they built off National Road in Rehoboth. It will be, the town of Rehoboth will actually take over maintenance of these roads once the 2-year maintenance period's up. So we just have to, you have to sign the final plat. So that's why it's coming forward.
Okay. Any questions about that? Or comments? These are no. All right. If there's no objection to adding that to the agenda, we will do so. Okay, anything else from the commission to be considered for the agenda Monday?
Objection.
All right. And I appreciate it, and I appreciate y'all allowing this meeting to move forward in such a nice manner, positive manner. Come to a conclusion, and I enjoyed my last admin meeting.